Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us today for the full episode is one of our councilman's members, Councilman Rodney Fleming. He represents District 1. Rodney, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Now, you are now entering your third year of City Council service. How would you describe the experience?
Wow, the experience has been like being on a roller coaster ride. It's had its ups and its downs, and it's just a wild ride. I definitely have enjoyed my time here. There have been some times where I haven't enjoyed it, and I wish that I wasn't doing it, but overall, I feel good about what I've done so far.
Now, as you well know, we have a charter review committee that is hard at work right now. They are reviewing the city's constitution and some of the proposed changes, which would eventually have to get city council approval and then voter approval in order to take effect. But some of those changes would impact city council service. And I'd like to get your thoughts on some of those, beginning with the idea of extending the length of a term of city council members from 2 years to 4 years. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the members that are on that committee, because this is a huge job that's needed to be done for years and years. And I appointed the guy I ran against the last two elections, Trinidad Aguirre, to be on that, and he's heading that committee, and I think he's doing a really good job. I'm not for, the number has been tossed around of 4 years, and I think 4 years is too much. I wouldn't be opposed to doing a 3-year term, and I think that would help with a lot of things, because one thing that I've learned since I've come into this office is nothing happens fast, nothing. I have two different issues that I brought up from the very beginning when I first got elected the first time, and neither one of them has been finished yet. So I think 3 years would be a good number to go to.
What about term limits? That's something that the committee is wrestling with. Do you favor the idea of term limits for city council members?
I'm very much in favor of term limits. I brought it up about a year ago in one of our city council meetings, and I think it was shot down pretty quick by most of the council people, but I am in favor of term limits, and I would be in favor of something to the effect of maybe 3 full terms and 3 partial terms. That could happen with, like my situation, I got elected in a midterm, so I had a partial and then I had a full. So I would be in favor of looking at that and possibly doing that. I think that turnover is a good thing in these offices, and one of the things that I see and I hear especially from younger people, younger than myself, is that the same people are up there day in and day out, and they're basically controlling it, and they're scared to run against these people because they just think that they've got it sewed up and they're going to take it. It'll be hard for them to beat them. And I think that if we put term limits on it, you get in, get what needs to be done, or you feel needs to be done, and then you get out and move on. So I am in favor of term limits.
Another thing that the committee is looking at is city council pay. City council pay has always been, since the beginning of time, about $40 for a city council member per month and $50 for the mayor. What are your thoughts about the possibility of raising that pay for city council members?
I'm in favor of it, and this is coming from a person, and I know that we're probably going to talk about this later on, but this is coming from someone I'm not going to run again for this office. So I think that paying them a more equivalent salary to their time would be appropriate, especially the mayor's job. The mayor's job, in order to be the mayor of the city of San Angelo, it's a 40-hour-a-week job. He or she is going to all the functions that they possibly can, and they represent our city. And $50 a month, it's unbelievable to me that you can do that. What it really does is it makes people that have full-time jobs not be able to run for those positions, and that's what we don't want. I think we need younger people to come into these jobs, and professional people that have businesses still, I think, that are still active. Not a lot of retirees to be in there, but people that are active in our community that could do this to go over there and maybe help with some of the compensation that I feel that is deserved.
Another idea that the Charter Review Committee is considering, and it's not a new one, is the possibility of moving from an elected police chief to an appointed police chief. Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want to go into that too much, other than to say that, throughout the state of Texas, pretty much every city except for, I think, one other city of our size has the appointed police chiefs. And I think that as a council, I think it's a good thing that they're appointed, because the council is a body of how many ever council members we have. We happen to have 7 that can be in control of that position and decide, what's right for the whole community. When you have an elected position like that, and the community does vote him or her in to that job, but it gives them a little bit of more accountability instead of as our police chief here, which I think our police chief is doing a great job, but I think that it would have more accountability to our council if we were to appoint that position.
While we're on the subject of police, the City Council recently approved the purchase of the First Financial Bank building, which is on Beauregard, as a possible site for a new police station. Why, in your mind, is that a good location to potentially build or renovate that building to serve as a police station?
It's that location. If you drive by that location, it's at the intersection of 2 of the major highways in this city. It's easy accessible to the loop. It's easy accessible to all parts of town. So location-wise, it's one of the best buildings that we could get, and I feel like we're negotiating on it right now, but I feel like we're getting it for a very good price. So I think that would be a great thing for our police station. Those of you that haven't seen our condition of our police station that our police officers are in now, it's unbelievable how bad it is. I mean, bad. They have evidence rooms upstairs that are not air conditioned, not cooled. And when you take blood evidence in, this was an education that I learned, when you take blood evidence in, you got to have things that have got to be at a certain temperature and hold them for, days, weeks, months at a time. And they just don't have that capability in the building that's in there now. There's also offices and hallways, desks and hallways and things. They've just outgrown that building, and that building served a purpose, but now it's time, I believe it's time for us to move on and try to get a newer building or renovate a building.
What's the likelihood, do you think, that construction project will require some sort of a bond election?
Almost 100%. We just, as a city, we just don't have the money, the extra money to do any kind of construction like that. We're talking about a project on the very low end would be 20 million. On the high end, it could be 40 million. And we can't do it, I don't believe, without the bond election. We can purchase the building. I think we can use it. If the bond election doesn't pass, I think we'll be able to use it for other city offices, which we, as a city government, need those offices also. So we'll either use it for other city departments or try to make it work somehow with the police department and not do the bond election. But I feel like that I'll have to go through the bond election in order to approve that.
Which is a very unusual step for San Angelo. We haven't had a bond election in a really long time. So if the City Council ends up calling a bond election, would you foresee that maybe some other projects, some other needs might be addressed through that same election?
I hope not. I feel like I know that our city streets and our infrastructure are in dire need right now, but I think that we're on the right path and we're headed in the right direction on that. So I don't think that we need to add things to that. And I'm very conservative as far as our money goes, and I think that the police station, we really, really need that. I mean, we really need that. I don't want to tie a bunch of other things to that at all myself. I wouldn't vote for anything else to be tied to it, just that in the election.
Well, you segued perfectly into my next question. As you know, city council candidates are now campaigning, and one of the major issues that's coming up is streets. What is your sort of assessment of what's happening with streets, and what more can and should be done in order to improve San Angelo's roadways?
Well, in the last 2 years, we've really been moving forward on trying to figure out a rotation on resurfacing our streets. And Michael, our assistant city manager right now, has come up with a plan where we're going to try to resurface all the streets in our city every 8 or 9 years. And so that's a very lofty plan, and we are headed in the right direction. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer. And I think that's going to be something that's going to help us out a whole lot. There are a few streets where we're going to have to pull some money from some other areas. Bell Street is a perfect example. Bell Street is a total redo. We have to totally rip out all of it and start over on that. And that's going to be about a $10 million project. And we're probably going to have to pull that from some of our other general funds in order to make it work. And I hope that we do get that done here in the next couple of years.
Of course, when you talk about those streets and the reconstruction that are needed of a lot of streets in San Angelo, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. How does the city sort of get its arms around a cost that is that large?
Yeah, 140 million, I think, was the number that I'd heard to redo all our streets. it's a timing issue. You cannot, and I understand, I have one of the number one things people come up to me on the street is our streets and our infrastructure, our water infrastructure. And you know, when you start looking at the budget of how much money we take in as a city and how much money we send out as a city, you have to be frugal on those things and say, I'm doing the best, or we are doing the best that we can with what we've got coming in. The fortunate thing is the last couple of years we've had more revenues coming in because of taxes and because of the oil boom. Now we're kind of going back down, slowing down a little bit. So, you know, we need to be frugal and not overspend and not over dedicate too much money that we may not have 3 years from now down the road on this.
Right now, city staff is working on the fiscal year 2016 budget. Last year, you were pretty steadfast in saying that we should not lower the property tax rate and take advantage of how well the economy was doing at the time. And with all the needs that are out there, what do you think your approach to a tax rate is going to be this coming year?
I would like to stay at the exact same tax rate that we're at right now. I don't want to raise it, and I for sure don't want to lower it. I think that people more so nowadays are getting into where very seldom does something go down. It goes up, and it usually is a steady rate, and I like it. I don't like it, but I realize that it is going to go up just a little bit each year, and those things. Our tax rate, if it does have to go up a little bit this year, which I don't think it will, I think we're going to be able to hold it at the same rate because of our last couple of years. But if we end up having to do that in the future, I would be, whoever's in the position that I'm in now, I would probably be backing them as long as it's a conservative raise and they've got a plan for where everything's going. The number one thing I'd want all the extra money going to is roads and water infrastructure.
We're talking with District 1 Councilman Rodney Fleming. We'll continue this conversation in just a moment, but first we'd like to tell you a story about how the SAFD brought a dead man back to life. Ray Minix had flatlined. No pulse, no respiration. Ray Minix was a dead man. Today, Minix calls himself Blessed Upright, a living testament to the training, proficiency, and rapid response of the San Angelo Fire Department.
In my eyes, it was a miracle. Having the extra manpower was huge.
The 58-year-old air traffic manager had just fetched a cup of coffee from the break room at the San Angelo Regional Airport Tower on February 5th when he went into full cardiac arrest. A co-worker one flight up heard him collapse and rushed to help. Had Minix fallen a few flights farther down, or had he been in the tower alone, he wouldn't have been found until it was too late.
That day, all I remember is getting to work and starting up the stairs. Then next thing I knew, it was 2 days later, I was in a hospital.
Realizing Minix was in mortal danger, his colleague rushed back into the tower, sounded an alarm, and left an open mic, knowing firefighters in neighboring Station 8 would quickly respond to the emergency tones. Cody Braden and Lauren Edwards were at the end of their shift, but among the first paramedics to respond. After rushing up 6 flights of stairs while loaded down with gear, firefighters pulled Minix from the narrow stairwell into the break room. Edwards administered chest compressions, while Braden readied the automatic electrical defibrillator, or AED. Not until the third defibrillation was Minix shocked back to life. As he began drawing breath again, SAFD personnel immediately turned their attention to getting an unconscious 220-pound man down a cramped stairwell while strapped to a backboard. The extra manpower from having 2 shifts of firefighters at the scene proved invaluable, as the patient was gingerly lowered down 6 flights of stairs, his condition reassessed on each landing. After an eternity that Edwards estimated at 10 minutes, Minix was loaded into an ambulance and sped to a hospital. A few days later, Braden visited and was amazed by what he saw.
And he was already talking like you and me again. It was amazing. Looked just like his normal self. So to go from complete cardiac arrest to back talking and being like you and me here, it was something amazing to see. I've only seen it, once or twice out of my 18 years here, so it was really impressive.
Today, Minix is rehabilitating, slowly testing his heart.
I'm pretty fortunate. That I got to work when I did, because usually I'm the first one and only one there most of the times. But Pat beat me to work, so he heard me fall. So I was lucky in that sense. And then being there on the airport where you have firefighters and EMTs, they got there pretty quick.
The men of Station 8 are still marveling at the miracle of bringing Minix back to life. For Edwards, the experience was doubly personal. He knows Minix well from his time at the airport.
And I can relate to it because the guys, same thing happened to my mom. And the guys got her back too. And she's with us today because they did the same thing we did.
The firefighting is what you kind of get that adrenaline rush on. But then you make runs like this and help people out in a way such as this, and it's just, I mean, words can't describe it. It's really unreal.
I think most of us sign up for this job to help people, and I know that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do it, and that's a pretty good day.
For SATV, I'm Anthony Wilson. Welcome back to the city. We are continuing our conversation with Rodney Fleming. He is, of course, the District 1 City Council member. So as we left off, we were talking about one of the big issues of the current City Council campaign, and that is streets. The other issue, of course, is the trash contract that the city has with Republic Services. What's your view of that contract and whether it was good or bad necessarily for the community?
Well, overall, it was good. I mean, the first thing that I want to say to everybody out there is, we sent out proposals to 7 companies on this deal. 2 companies responded to our request, and I was instrumental in looking at both the proposals that were submitted to us, and they were both very large proposals. And TDS's proposal was a good over $5 a month more than Republic's. I mean, right off the bat, it was just coming down to the basic things. It was $5 more per month. And so, as a broker in my civilian job, I negotiate contracts. Well, when you're looking at the major point of the contract and it's being that much different, that's why we decided to offer the contract to Republic Services and to negotiate with them. Now, what happened was that a lot of people just don't understand is, we had the 2 proposals. One was over $5 more and one was less. And then we decided, okay, we're going to pick Republic to negotiate with. We went and started negotiating with them the fine points, which there's a lot of points. There's hundreds of points to this contract. And when you start negotiating, things change. The price changes. Just as if we would have gone to TDS and we would have said, TDS, we accept your proposal, but we got to negotiate those fine points. And those fine points would have changed also. And very rarely does it go down. We talked about this just a minute ago. It almost always goes up on those fine points on what you're discussing. So I think we did the right thing by going with Republic, and because Republic was going to be less no matter what than TDS. And that's the thing that I hear from everybody is they just don't want it going up. But the thing that I point out to everybody, and everybody talks about it going up, but what they don't realize was how good the contract was that the city had before. It was very, very favorable to the city. It was a very, very low rate. In fact, it was probably one of the lowest rates in the whole state of Texas for a city of this size. It might have been the lowest rate for a city of this size.
And of course, that rate had not increased in 7 years.
And not in 7 years. And now, even with our increase that's coming up, that what we're going to do, we're still one of the lowest cities in the state of Texas of a city of our size. I mean, we're right at the very bottom. So it's going up, but it's not going up where we're one of the highest in the state. It's going up to where it probably should have been a business support, providing a service to our city. So I think that I think it's good. I wish, I voted against the final because I didn't feel like that we had all the fine points that to my liking, all the fine points weren't worked out, and I wanted to get those fine points worked out. One of them was to pay back the monies that were taken that shouldn't have been taken from some of the overage on the bookkeeping or whatever they want to call it, but the overage on that. I wanted all that money to be paid back before we agreed to a contract, because I felt like you don't have any power over them if we just say, okay, we're going to do the contract, but will you do this? Will you get it done? I felt like we should have waited.
And when you look back in retrospect, there's been a lot of criticism about the process itself. Would you have done anything differently in regards to the process?
For sure would have probably waited at least another week, if not more. I myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I myself have read through both the proposals that were put before us that weekend, and I studied and highlighted and marked it all and figured out, made a column of both of them and put out the pros and cons of both of them and looked it out. And at the end of my process, it was a fairly easy choice. But the public wanted us to put more time into it, and I can understand that. And maybe they wanted more discussion time, and that might have been a good thing when this contract comes up, is we have more public discussion instead of just a council person's person.
You mentioned you are a real estate broker, and one of the things that you've been steadfastly supportive of is the need for more affordable housing backed by tax credits here in San Angelo, even though that stance has sometimes put you at odds with many of your constituents. Explain why you think that's such an important thing for our community.
Well, one thing, I'm not in support of low-income housing backed by tax credits. I'm in favor of low-income housing for our city overall. If the company that's doing the low-income housing is going for tax credits and they get those tax credits, then yes, I think they have the right to do that. But the most important thing is low-income housing. We need low-income housing, and one of the reasons why I'm for low-income housing is I grew up in low-income housing in Mason. I lived in low-income housing for years, and I think that it was a good thing for my single mother at the time, and I think that it helped her get through some hard times. And so I couldn't vote against low-income housing. And the thing about the project that was in my district that I was so much for is that the property rights of the owner of the property. The owner of the property has had that property for years and years. That zoning on that property has been zoned for apartment complexes for over 20 years. So it's zoned for apartment complexes for over 20 years. That property is going to be an apartment complex. Now, whether it's a low income or just an apartment complex, I don't know. And that's not up for me to decide whether it's going to be either one of those. What we voted for as a council, and I was only one of 3 other council people that voted for the resolution in support of low-income housing in that area. And I am in support of low-income housing for that area and all areas, the whole city.
One of your more recent proposals has been to issue letter grades that are tied to the health inspections of restaurants. Why do you think that's something that would be in the public interest?
Well, I've been approached by dozens and dozens of people that, especially after this last meeting, people are still coming up to me and they're totally in favor of the letter grade system, and even Bernae Sheffield, who is one of I think he's in charge of the Restaurant Association and they own Zittner's Daughter, he was in favor of, you can see that on the council meeting, he was in favor of the letter grade system. What they're not in favor of, the Restaurant Association, is posting those letter grades on the restaurant. And I can go either way on posting on the restaurant. The public, however, though, overwhelmingly has come to me and said that they would love to see posting of the grades on the restaurants. So I'm sitting here as a council. The council has already said, or they acted like they decided that they don't want to do that. The other 6 members of the council, I can go either way, as long as I do believe that we need to do the letter grades to make it easier to read. We had a number system, a demerit system that was in place that was very hard to even understand. You didn't even really know if they were failing or not. An ABC grading system makes it real easy. You know if you're failing or not, or if it's doing subpar.
You've also been really strong on the issue of water and urged and encouraged the city to continue to develop other water sources, including reusing treated wastewater and capturing stormwater from the Red Arroyo. Are you satisfied with what's being done on that front?
No, not at all. And now people are leaning back and sitting there thinking, well, our lawns are green, our lakes are full, and everything's going just the way it needs to go, and people are just forgetting about less than 12 months ago, we were about to be in a dire crisis. I mean, dire for our city. And now no one's talking about it. Nobody at all is talking about our water situation. I'm not happy with how things are going on those things, and I'm learning to live with that, because as I've been in this position, I've learned that every big job has to have a study. Well, I hate studies, but every job has to have a study because it's a government deal. So we're working. Right now, there's 2 studies being done. One's being done on the Red Arroyo project, and we'll know exactly how much water falls through the bottom of the Red Arroyo and whether it's even feasible that we do that program or not. Chuck Brown with UCRA, I believe UCRA, says that there is enough water. Our engineers in water department here says they don't think there is enough. So the study's being done, and we're going to find out who's right on that and whether it's even whether it be cost feasible to do it, because that project again is a $20 to $40 million project also. And if we were getting back to the bonds, if we ever had to do another bond in the future, and that would be in the future, that would be one that we possibly I would want us to do a bond on to do that. Going back now, talking about the second part of that question was the reuse, the wastewater reuse. We have to do that. That's being studied right now, and that's without a doubt, that is water that we can use and we can get to. All major cities in the state of Texas, all of them right now are all headed to that direction where they're all going to be using wastewater, recycled wastewater for their city use. And so we have to figure out how we're going to do that and get that going as soon as possible. And hopefully, I think that study comes out in July, and hopefully it'll be positive and we can figure out what monies we're going to use to do that also.
Should the city incentivize in some way water conservation?
Yes. And Marty and I are meeting with John Begnaud here in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to bring forward to the council a program where we think that, like for example, right now we've gone to our water use where you can water twice a week in the summertime. I think that that's totally too much water that that we're using right now. And John Begnaud, who is an expert here in San Angelo, he says that we should all be watering only once a week. You should train your lawns to go deeper for the water. You want to do 1 inch of water once a week. And I think that we could get by with that. We just need to learn and train our yards to do that. And you know, that comes to one thing, and I don't think you were going to ask a question on this, but our water rates, we're doing a water rate study right now because our water bills right now are some of the lowest water bills in the whole state of Texas also. And it's hard when you've been so low on all these things, trash, water, and services by the city, and it's because in the past our city councils and our city managers haven't been willing to, do those little raises. And I think what we need to get into a program on, and I think Daniel, our new city our city manager right now, I think that we're on a program where we're talking about, doing those little bitty raises each year instead of hitting somebody after 10 years of no raises and then you get it socked to you. So if we can do that and plan it out right, we'd have little raises each year over time.
Only about 30 seconds left. Okay. You said that you will not run again. Is there any chance when your term ends in May of 2016 that you would seek another term?
Well, it's not likely that I would ever run, or that I won't run again this next time. It's very, very unlikely. If you ask my wife, though, she will say, no, he's not running again, never, ever, ever, ever again. So we'll see what happens with that. She almost always wins.
She's usually the boss.
She is the boss, not usually. She is the boss.
We've been talking with District 1 Councilman Rodney Fleming, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode of The City.